Afternoon. At the state capitol, Republican lawmakers are still considering their impeachment of state Supreme Court Justice Janet Protasiewicz. And the first hearings on funding for American Family Field will be held this week. CBS 58 Capitol correspondent Emily Fannin and WIS Politics editor J.R. Ross break it all down for us in this week's Capitol Connection.
First, we're going to talk about the issue of impeachment, as the state Supreme Court earlier this week rejected a lawsuit filed by liberals that sought to prohibit the legislature from holding impeachment proceedings in the first place. And specifically, this is all targeted towards an effort to try and prevent liberal Justice Janet Protasiewicz from being impeached. Now, justices on the court didn't give any explanation for the reason to dismiss the case, and Protasiewicz didn't hear the case even. But this comes as, while Republicans haven't started any impeachment proceedings, we have heard from Assembly Speaker Robin Vos say that he created a panel of former justices to review the impeachment process, which is now the center of another lawsuit, which was filed by a liberal watchdog group, American Oversight, who is basically arguing before a judge that, hey, they can't secretly meet behind closed doors and have these discussions. That's going up against the opens meeting law. Meanwhile, Vos and his attorneys are arguing, they haven't met. We don't know if there's going to be a report, and we don't even know if there's really even a panel at this point, based off what we learned from the court hearing on Friday, where we heard from former Supreme Court Justice David Prosser saying, I'm not on a panel, but I've been asked to look into this.
He also won't say who else he's working with. Neither has Robin Vos. I mean, look, Vos has been trying to find these off-ramps we've talked about for a few weeks now with impeachment. The redistricting bill, the Iowa-style system, it's a possible off-ramp from the road to impeachment. This panel collection, informal advisors, whatever word you want to use, it's a possible off-ramp to tell him, possibly, there aren't grounds to impeach Protasiewicz or this isn't going to work. It'd be a way out of this because Vos has got to keep his options open. At some point, Protasiewicz is going to say, we think, I'm hearing this redistricting lawsuit. At some point, the court, we think, is going to say, we're going to hear the lawsuit with her involved. Then what does Robin Vos do, right? Does he have the 50 votes in the Assembly to impeach her? We don't know. Does he want to do that? He keeps saying, if you listen to him over and over again, it's a last resort. So these various avenues are ways that, okay, he's got a way out of this possibly if push comes to shove, because in talking to people, we don't get the impression that this is a good issue for Republicans. The look of impeaching a sitting justice over this doesn't play well with the public. Now, Vos has an argument to be made that is a legitimate one of whether she should be hearing a case she's made comments about. That's a legitimate question to raise. But this step of impeachment is not really playing well in people I talk to, and they just don't think he wants to go there. And
looking ahead to the abortion lawsuit that we've talked about plenty times on this show before, we had anti-abortion groups call on district attorneys in Dane and Milwaukee County this week, asking them to enforce the 1849 criminal abortion ban, which is the center of a lawsuit that has not been resolved yet. They argue that it's illegal for Planned Parenthood right now, who is resuming services at Madison and Milwaukee, based on a Dane County judge's motion to dismiss the lawsuit. And what she said in that July decision was that she doesn't believe the 1849 ban applies to consensual abortions. So that left the door open for Planned Parenthood to interpret that, hey, we can go ahead and keep doing this while this lawsuit plays out. Now, anti-abortion groups calling for this, it's not going to carry so much weight because we know Dane and Milwaukee DAs have already said they're not going to enforce what they call in this archaic law. But there could be maybe some possible legs if the Sheboygan County district DA does all of a sudden want to enforce this law. Why? Because Planned Parenthood told me this week they want to resume services at that location as well. So kind of depends if and when that happens and how soon they will. Right now it's a staffing issue, but this once again just brings forth the argument from anti-abortion groups saying, hey, we don't think this is right.
They also don't have a hammer to go after anybody to enforce it. I mean, what's their path? They didn't really say they're going to file a lawsuit. They're talking about maybe a public pressure campaign to try and get the DAs to do it. Ishmael Ozan from Dane County has had a statement on his website since after the U.S. Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade saying, I'm not enforcing this law. It's been there every day now for more than a year. How is this going to change his mind about that? There's no real clear pressure point for them to switch their policy.
And looking ahead to next week, there will be the first public hearing on the $700 million Brewers Stadium bill. Now, what we heard from one of the co-sponsors of the legislation, Representative Rob Brooks, is that he said he would like to make some tweaks to it, specifically to reduce the contribution from the city of Milwaukee and Milwaukee County. Right now, they're being asked to put forth $2.25 million, and Brooks kind of indicated maybe roughly getting back to around $135, $136 million. And that might be something that is brought up during these public hearings, but I think we can predict a lot of emotions at this hearing, which will be held on Thursday.
So I'm watching for several things. One, the $202.5 million from the city and county combined, will that come down? That really was a negotiating tactic to put that number in to kind of scare locals, saying, hey, if you don't work with us, this could be what happens. Is the team get more involved in talking to people in the Capitol? They have not been impressed with the Brewers' effort to engage lawmakers. Also, their PR campaign hasn't really been very good. They could maybe step it up a bit, talking to some people, maybe give more. So will they give more? And then three, where does this end up with the Senate? We have an assembly bill right now. It's working its way through that process, but we don't have confirmation the Senate is really on board with this deal or this proposal. So where do they end up with it, and how do they move on it?
All right, we'll have plenty more to talk about next week during that public hearing. Thanks so much for joining us.
You can watch Capitol Connection every Sunday at 6:30 on the CBS 58 Morning News, or catch up on all of the headlines from Madison by heading to our website, cbs58.com.